Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show, coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska, where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Hey, thank you, Scott, and hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Must Read Alaska, coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. We are the place for conservative news and content, and we're standing up for the strongest and the freest America that we can possibly have. And we're always in your corner, fighting for your constitutional rights. You can find us at Must Read Alaska on our website, mustreadalaska.com, and also on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. We may not be the biggest organization covering the news in Alaska, but it's not for the lack of trying. I am Suzanne Downing, and you can find my column, Must Read America, at our news partner, Newsmax. And I write every couple of weeks there, so check that out over at Newsmax. Thanks for tuning in, and hello to John Quick, my co-host. Hey, what's going on in Nikiski?
Hey, Suzanne, thanks so much for asking. John Quick here out in the great unincorporated area of Nikiski, Alaska. We want to give a big Must Read Alaska shout out to Lydia Jacoby, the hero of Alaska. For those of you who have been living under a rock like most of us have and not paid attention to the Olympics, this is something to pay attention to. 17-year-old from Seward, Alaska, wins not only a gold medal, but a silver medal. And that is a huge deal. If you watch, we posted a couple stories on it on our Must Read Alaska Facebook. And if you watch, we have the actual footage of her winning it. Apparently her teammate from the US was poised to win it, and everybody thought she was going to win it. And Lydia Jacoby's face after she won is just priceless. It's a 17-year-old looking up at the scoreboard, realizing, holy crap, I just won a gold medal. And seeing the stories and seeing the footage from Seward High School of all of her friends and family rejoice from winning a gold medal is pretty awesome. And in stark contrast of that, you have the soccer team in the U.S. Olympics, where people are outright cheering for them to lose because they don't want to see them on the podium. And so we want to celebrate somebody like Lydia Jacoby, who is from Alaska, from Seward, and came home with a gold medal and a silver medal. It's pretty amazing.
Right, and then you have our women, the most decorated female team in the sport, absolutely clobbered by the competition there with Canada, and they're going to have to compete for the bronze. And everybody said a big collective, who cares? And I understand also our women's beach volleyball team lost to Canada, and that was a little bit controversial. There was like a play that was reversed and then reversed again, and it went in favor of Canada, and everybody's all upset about that. And then we have the first transgender weightlifter and competing in the women's division, and she was not able to lift. It was like 240 pounds or something over her head. That person, Laurel Hubbard, she transitioned from male to female in 2012. She had competed as a male up until 2000, about 2001. So I think she last competed. And then she took off for a while. And then she transitioned with hormones and surgery, became a female. Now she competes as a female. And for some reason, they decided to let her go ahead and compete, which is mind-boggling to those of us who are women, thinking, how is that fair? I got to go back, John, and say, if they had allowed a man to compete in the swimming, or a transgender to compete in swimming against Lydia, she probably wouldn't have made it to the Olympics, because it's just not fair. It's got bigger shoulders, right?
Yeah, it's it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the Olympics. My hope is that they keep women's sports, and men's sports. And I think it's just fair that way. And that way, folks like Lydia Jacoby can pursue a sport like swimming and work their butt off and train here in Alaska and go on to national teams and what have you, and then make it to the Olympics. It's going to be a slippery slope if we do anything otherwise.
Yeah, I'm afraid the trains already left that station, and until we get this figured out about what genders are what, we're going to see more and more transgenders take the place of women in sports. You never see it go the other way. You never see women competing against men and being able to advance in these competitions. It only goes the other way, where men supplant women in these competitive arenas. And I don't know, I think most of us think it's wrong, but the International Olympic Committee apparently thought it was right. Meanwhile, John, here in Anchorage tonight, there's going to be a meeting of the Comprehensive Fiscal Working Group. And that's the group that is supposed to come up with a solution for the permanent fund dividend and the power cost equalization fund. And I don't give it much hope. I haven't been really watching it very closely because I don't like wasting my time. And when they finally get close to having something worth talking about, we'll talk about that. But so far, they have just been twiddling their thumbs over there at the LIO. And quite honestly, we all have better things to do than to waste our time on that. Hey, by the way, today on the show, everybody, we have a special guest. And we have had this guest before. It's Russell Biggs, who was part of the group that tried to recall Felix Rivera, didn't quite make it, now is going after Meg Zaletel on the assembly, and is very close, I understand, to having the signatures you need. Russell, welcome to the show.
Hey, Suzanne, how are you?
Great. So I understand that you were splashing down 6 Mile Creek in a kayak over the weekend. You want to just tell me a little bit about that?
No, yeah, that's an annual festival that Tim Johnson and a group of the kayakers and pack rafters in the state put on. And it's a great time to come down and enjoy some fun whitewater. They have a pack raft race and a kayak race. But the big highlight is the pool toy race. And so I think this year there were probably 30 people in everything from, pink flamingos and unicorns. And there's somebody had an inflatable mattress. And they basically swim down the first 3 or 4 class 4 drops. It's a really fun time. It's really funny to watch. There's some Facebook photos and videos up on Facebook if you want to watch some of that.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know where 6 Mile Creek is, it's over on the sort of the Hope cutoff there, and it's near the Hope cutoff, right?
It's like 3 miles before the cutoff, then it goes down to about 7 miles past, I think. Somewhere in the yeah.
And it's really fun, but it's also dangerous. Like, people have died on that section.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's been several. Well, actually, I did CPR on a guy about 3 years ago. That was he was down in waders, and he had a like sit on top, kind of like a lake kayak, and I don't think he knew what he was getting into, but luckily he survived. There was an RN and myself and a couple, and the guy that actually jumped in and saved his life because he had pinned himself on a strainer. There's some really dramatic footage that made it into National Geographic from that rescue that was on national TV, which was actually pretty interesting to watch. But yeah,
I'll check it out.
Yeah, you should see it. He was really, really lucky because there were a lot of medical professionals right there, but also that the guy, Obi, that jumped in and risked his own life to get him out of there was a real hero that day. It was quite the experience.
Well, for anybody who is interested in some Alaska fun in the hot weather, which we have this week, the 6 Mile Creek is fun, but it does have, like you say, it has some strainers. They show up at various times. You don't always know. I don't know what it's like right now, but I will say that to be taken seriously, you've got a class 4 and a little bit of class 5 in that as well. And I've only done it once, but man, that is a fun ride.
It sure is. It's a good time.
All right, well, let's get back to the politics, because that's what we're here for. We do politics on Must Read Alaska. We don't do whitewater rafting or kayaking for a living here. But I tell you, you are making huge progress in getting the names on the petitions to have Assemblymember Meg Zaletel recalled. And let's remind our listeners from the beginning where we started on this.
Well, this was the kind of the companion recall language that was submitted about a year ago, actually, that during the meeting that Felix Rivera allowed more than the number of people that were supposed to be in the assembly chambers after they had kicked everybody out of the assembly chambers using that same logic. Everybody except the people they wanted to be there. And that initial recall with against Felix Rivera, they struck part of the language out, but it went in front of the voters. And unfortunately, we lost that. But in the process, they had denied the language against Meg Zaletel completely. And so our group took that to the Superior Court and won. We won the 10 months later. We won the case, and it was then released as a petition, so we could begin gathering signatures. And interestingly enough, so it's been almost a year, and things have calmed down because people have gone back to their lives. They don't want to think about COVID anymore. They want to get back to living their life. Dave Bronson got elected. There's a lot of things that happened that were good things, but also that it kind of took some of the fire out, which is unfortunate, because I can tell you that the political machine that enabled a lot of the trouncing on the personal liberties over the last year is still going strong, and they have not stopped. They've poison penned a lot of the language against any kind of conservative thought, I think, against Dave Bronson. And you saw some of that probably over the last couple of assembly meetings, how
Absolutely.
that is playing out. And so we had an important threshold. We crossed a big number of signatures this last week, but as you know, we have to gather those from District 4 voters only, which makes it a little bit more difficult because you don't know for sure if people actually know that they're in District 4, and so you take it on their word, and they may not know. But last time we had about a 60% validity rate, so people either that knew or thought that they were in District 4 is about 60%. And so we're looking to get around 4,000 signatures, getting close, but we definitely need help for that. But
before you, okay, go ahead. You tell us the interesting things. I don't want you to lose that thought.
Well, I don't know. The interesting thing is the Superior Court case prompted the Muni. When they lost that case, Meg Zaletel joined into that appeal to the Supreme Court. So that case is actually going into the Supreme Court in about a week, week or less, or maybe more. I'm not 100% sure, but it's coming up really soon.
Are they going to hear it, or like within a week, you think?
I think it's about a week. Yeah, definitely the oral arguments are coming up, and so what's been interesting about that is, I kind of watch what's going on. Unfortunately, the worst thing about this whole recall process, and me having never been involved in politics, now being involved in politics just because of the recalls, is that I have to watch what's being said on Twitter. And I got to tell you, Suzanne, I've really taken care of myself. And I try to be healthy, and I eat right, and I don't smoke, and I exercise regularly. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to get cancer from Twitter.
Isn't it awful and toxic? I'm telling you, I drop our stories there, and I run for the exit because those people are so nasty.
It is the worst. It is some of the absolute worst.
It is.
Observations of humanity. But that being said, every once in a while somebody will say something that actually is important, and you can get some information out of that. So what came out of that this week was that Ruth Botstein had, in her in her opinion, she had filed that she is not able. Number one, she says that she is the only person in the Muni law that is able to respond to complex constitutional questions, and so she is asking for an extension on the Downtown Hope Center injunction, which, as you know, that was about the transgender. Basically, that initially that they had, I think it was about 2 years ago, that they had fought the Muni on being forced to allow transgender men into the women's shelter. And then with the assembly recently passing the I think they call it the good neighbor policy, but basically it was the shelter regulation that passed
It was the new ordinance where they're going to license shelters now. And so you have to
Correct.
follow, now that they're going to license them, you have to follow their rules, which means their rules are going to say, you have to let men sleep next to women.
Correct. And so they did that. So they passed that. And so the Downtown Hope Center now has filed another injunction against the municipality, which that's
Right.
what Ruth, the attorney, was referencing. So, and this is what happens when a municipality like Anchorage just steps over everybody's civil rights. And you know, they have so many things going on at a judicial level that now that apparently there's only one person that can handle that. You know, obviously that's probably not true, but I did get a chuckle because that's what happens when people start fighting back, and that's the reason we fought back. And I'm glad that the Downtown Hope Center is fighting back. And I'm telling you right now, this is a big scoop. If we win the Supreme Court case, I'm donating all of those legal fees to the Downtown Hope Center. Anything we get back from the Muni is going straight to that case and to that organization, because I really feel strongly that they're getting, bulldozed by the same people that wanted to bulldoze the people out of the citizens out of the assembly chambers. It's the same kind of process. You know, it's death by 1,000 cuts, and people don't have to put up with that.
Yeah, and by the way, we'll put in the show notes today when we post this a link to the Downtown Hope Center website where people can donate. I know the Americans for Alliance or Defending Liberty, ADL, I think is they're doing their legal work for them, but it is it is costly. It's money that they could spend taking care of poor and battered women, and instead they're having to just fight for their right to do so.
Right.
This is elections have consequences. This is Meg Zaletel. This is the stuff that she supports, which is, men sleeping next to women on the floor down at the Hope Center, causing all kinds of trauma for those women who, many of them have come off the street after having been abused by men,
right.
and really don't want to have to sleep next to anybody like that.
Well, that organization is almost entirely volunteer ran. I mean, they accept private donations. They don't take money from the municipality. I mean, it's a perfect example of like how a private faith-based enterprise does an amazing amount of good work. I mean, they have the pastry program where the women learn how to cook. They feed hundreds of people every day, for about a fifth. Yeah, men and women, and they do it for about a fifth of what the municipality pays out to have it done. And so and also, not just the Downtown Hope Center, but the Gospel Rescue Mission has said the same thing, that legislation that they passed. And they passed it because they were trying to have some sort of carrot to coax the other legislation through, so they could buy the Alaska Club and everything else. I mean, all of that was basically to buffalo the public that somehow the Muni is going to enforce the rules, which and the interesting thing about that was, they said that they would enforce these rules and it's going to limit the amount of disruption where these shelters are placed. But we finally got our last set of public records from the municipality, and in that set of public records, there's an interchange between I can't remember which attorney for the Muni was saying it, but there was interchange between the municipal code enforcers and the Muni attorney, saying basically that anything disruption wise that happens to the surrounding neighborhoods, that nobody is going to be able to do anything about it. APD was saying, well, the municipality should have the enforcers do it. The enforcers responded and said, no, that's really not our role. So basically that entire piece of legislation from that internal email, if you believe what they were saying back and forth, is, I mean, it's useless. It put the one carrot, which was that the municipality would prevent anything happening like it did on Carluck Street and having 3rd Avenue just destroyed by
the surroundings around Beans Cafe and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. And so it really, I mean, nothing good's going to come out of that, except you're going to put shelters that were already functioning and doing things cheaply and by volunteers are now going to be regulated in a way that they're going to actually lose beds, which, again, and that all that goes back to the reason, one of the many reasons Meg Zaletel and needs to be recalled. I mean, and again, it's an uphill battle. I mean,
Sure it is.
I don't have any
You don't have any illusions after you've been through this. I mean, Felix Rivera was kind of the worst of the worst. He was the chair of the assembly when they basically said, yeah, it doesn't matter that there's an executive order saying that we have to keep our room to 15 or under. We're the assembly. We'll put in as many as we want, as long as they're the people we want to put in. And the rest of you, you can stay outside with your signs and placards and your protest chants and do what you will, but you aren't coming in because you don't agree with us. And all the at this time last year, exactly at this time is when they were getting ready to push through all of this legislation to buy the hotel on 36th and Seward, to buy the hotel down in Spenard, the America's Best, to buy the Alaska Club out on Tudor and the building for Beans Cafe. And they were going to create this huge industrial homeless complex where they would spread it throughout the city. And they would, they did all of this planning to use CARES Act money, some of it illegally, as it turned out, because of some of the good work you did in discovering what they were up to and the public records request you put in. And so all of this has been going on for a year. And as egregious as Felix Rivera was, we still weren't able to recall him. I was shocked, I must say, when I saw the ballot language, and he was able to use his section of the ballot language just like a campaign brochure.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, and I get the question often. People are like, "Well, why do you think this is going to be any different?" And the answer to that is that number one is that we need to see this through. Otherwise, they'll do it every time. I mean, what's the point of having a recall process if the municipality will deny it outright and the private citizen has to sue every time, regardless of what, and again, we won the Superior Court case. And so if that's the only way that a private citizen can use the rights guaranteed in our code, then it's not actually a right, and for every person that doesn't speak up when this kind of stuff happens, I mean, that's just another step to pushing us all into a corner. I mean, you saw it this last week. It just amazes me that that Chris Constant can tell a room full of people, a room full of American citizens, a lot of them veterans that fought in foreign wars and, put their lives in danger and were out getting shot at. He can tell a room full of U.S. citizens, you are not allowed to clap. That just blows my mind. I mean, what kind of, I don't know. Did you see the municipal clapping compliance officer thing, the satire thing that got put up? I don't know if you saw
the little satire that was going around. I did. I was like, yeah.
But the interesting thing about that was, just to give people that are listening, so somebody wrote a resolution as a joke that the municipality was going to create a clapping compliance officer because Christopher Constant had thrown such a fit about it. And then the funny thing is about half of the people weren't sure that it was satire. I mean, it was one of those things where you wouldn't be surprised, right? I mean, you would go, well, maybe they are doing that. I wouldn't be surprised either. It was like the Babylon Bee. It was so straight faced that it's like, well, that's good, but really, you weren't 100%. You guys say, nah, they're not doing that. Well, I don't know. I mean, you've been following politics a long time, and I guess I would like your opinion on that. I mean, I feel like that, like everything this assembly has done. I mean, it's been a piece. It's been one link of a chain at a time, and before you know it, you've got a whole set of chains, right? I mean, it's one link, one little thing that they do, they kick you out of the chambers, and then the mayoral election denying that to happen. I mean, I kind of feel like that people have to get involved and they have to speak up, because they're not the political opposition is not going to stop, and they clearly have not stopped.
No, they're not going to stop. They're very activated, but our side has been activated. One of the problems we see is that the Democratic Party is very, very engaged, and they're openly engaged in these local races. They put money into it. The Democratic Party is backing the certain candidates. They're endorsing them. They're giving them office space and shared services in the party. And so they are, in fact, running those candidates as partisan. I know it's nonpartisan, but it's not nonpartisan. They're running them as Democratic candidates, whereas the Republican Party is sitting back and saying, no, we don't get involved in local races. We only get involved in partisan races. So they have seeded the field. And I am one person who just doesn't think you just don't seed the field. You may, fight to the death, you just never seed. And it's unfortunate that the Republican Party is as weak as it is, that it won't engage in these local races. It doesn't want having to do with them. And that's why we have all over the state, we see the local governments being run essentially by the Democratic Party. And then they're growing a farm team. That's their team for who they bring up into the legislature. We see that the same thing over at the school board, completely taken over by a certain group of people who share a certain type of values, such as mask the kids, keep them home, and pay the union teachers double for not showing up. So yeah, we're getting engaged, and I think you raised the point earlier where we're seeing people kind of going about, they want to go and dip net, and they want to go out and raft, and they want to go camp, and they just want to have some fun this summer because it was such a miserable winter for people. They were so cooped up. And there's something about Republicans and conservatives, they're very family oriented, and they are individualists. That's not to say they're selfish, but they really are individualists. And they get engaged with politics reluctantly because they have other priorities.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's a nasty business. I mean, that's
you've seen it. It's
yeah, absolutely. It's easy to it's easy to want to. I mean, it's the whole Stockholm syndrome thing. You somehow think that it's what happened to you wasn't so bad, and things they've turned around, and now it's going to be be better this time, or I don't know if you've ever seen the old I think it was called the Ash conformity experiments. Are you familiar with that? That was where they took basically 4 or 5 people that were in on the joke, and then they had one person, it wasn't a joke, it was 4 or 5 people that were in on the experiment, and then one person that was not, and they would show them different lengths of line, like on a piece of paper, like here's the length of line, and they would say, okay, which one of these lines is the longest? And everybody that was in on it slowly would start to agree that a clearly incorrect answer was the right answer. And the people that were not in on it, the experimentees would follow in line. It was like about 40% of the time, 30 to 40% of the time, people that clearly knew that what they were agreeing to was wrong, they would follow into it. And so kind of an instinct of probably a social instinct that humans have.
We had the exact same thing in this column that we ran this week from one of our senior contributors, Alexander Dolitsky, and it's called Remembering the Soviet Psychological Documentary Film, I and Others, that I took part in. So he was born in Russia, raised in Russia. After college, he came to the US. He's a professor emeritus at UA, University of Alaska Southeast. Very, very brilliant man. And when he was a teenager, 18, he took part in this film. It was a psychological, sort of a documentary. And they had a group of people, a psychologist with a group of people, and all of the people in the group said that both of these pyramids in front of them were white, when there was clearly, you could see on the film, one was black. And they all agreed that it was white. And then when they got to him, he was in this film, he was part of the experiment, he agreed that it was white. And all of this column, which you should read, because it's all about his experience of being pressured into the wrong answer. And it's exactly what you're talking about. And
yeah.
And, well, if there's a tie-in to back what we're talking about here in town, you think it's normal, but it's not.
Yeah, it's the 10% rule where all you need is 10% conformity, and people will think if you say it loud enough and you say it enough that the 10% represent the majority of opinion, and that's just not the case. I mean, I feel like there's definitely a loud 10% of people, and again, the political opposition tries to make it sound like that's what represents, that thought represents the rest of the people in the state. And it's just not true, and the fact that Dave Bronson is mayor right now is a great example of that idea that is incorrect, because Mayor Bronson got elected,
And he wasn't supposed to be the one who could do it.
no, not at all,
He's the dour Norwegian who smiles reluctantly, and just kind of an average guy, just a pilot guy, and likes to go hunting. And yeah, here he is, the mayor of the 38% of the state of Alaska population. He's the mayor of, because people finally woke up. If people would like to help you in this, how can they get involved in helping you with this recall?
Well, they can go sign, and that's the important thing.
Where's it at?
If they're not in District 4, they can bring somebody that is in District 4, and we have 3 very easy places to come to. The Midtown cars from about 11 to 7. The New Sagaya, also generally from 11 to 7. And then we have volunteers at the Abbott cars. Occasionally, it's not always a guaranteed, but the 100% guaranteed place to go is Dwayne's Antique Market, which you can find.
What are their hours?
9 to 6, and they're there all the time. Yeah,
and Midtown cars, that's in the old, what we used to call the Sears Mall.
Correct. Yeah, and then the New Sagaya is just down from that a little ways on Old Seward, so it's pretty easy to find. There'll be people out in front, and they'll ask you if you're a District 4 voter, and you can sign it up.
What's your deadline?
August 15th is when we're hoping to turn in over 4,000 signatures. We're hoping to get over, the more over 4,000, the better. But 4,000 probably going to be about the right number, considering the validity rate that we need, and traditionally it got with the Rivera. We gathered about 5,000 during the time of COVID in the winter. So it's a different set of. It's interesting is the summer makes it in some ways hard too, because now, even though you don't have the COVID restrictions, people, they're out of town, or they want to go do something else.
They know summer's slipping away from us. So, well, our time is slipping away from us too. So thank you so much for being on our show today. Hey, everybody, before we go, for the rest of the week, make sure to sign up for the newsletter. You just go to mustreadalaska.com and plug in your email address. And if you'd like to sponsor this podcast and reach hundreds of Alaskans every week, just give John a holler. John, are you still on the line with us?
I am here.
Hey, what is the address that they can use to get in touch with you for?
They can email me at john, at mustreadalaska.com.
Very good. And Scott Levesque, we want to thank you for all you do as the producer of this show. You make it all come together. Great team here at Must Read Alaska. And it was a joy to have Russell Biggs on our show today. So if you're a supporter, thank you so much. And if you'd like to support the conservative side of the news, there is a donate button, and we really do appreciate it over at mustreadalaska.com. Just hit that button and donate what you can. We will see you next week here somewhere.